If you got big dreams and bad jeans, you were in the right place. These shirts are available at barbellapparel.com. Check it out. Link is below. Guys, you can absolutely tell how good a contest is based on how many pairs of underwear you had to leave behind. Let me tell you about my worst contest performance in 20 years of competing. See, Alex Bromley, made a video bragging, letting everybody know that I was going to World's Strongest Man. And let's just say the result from this contest makes me think I'm going to play the next one a little closer to the chest. Now, this story has everything. It has heartbreak, suspense, adventure, Christmas joy, and there's even a moral at the end of the story. So because I walk around 20 pounds too fat for my weight class and I refuse to get down to the low teens body fat percentage of all the other competitive athletes in the 105s, I usually have to do a weight cut that's a little bit too big. I came down from about 255, which isn't abnormal, but it is just a massive pain in the ass, especially when you're traveling. But I set up the plane so that we would get to Madison, Wisconsin by 5 p.m. That would give me the rest of the night to sweat my ass off, make weight, wake up early, weigh in, and then proceed to gorge myself on food to get back to a very comfortable pressure-filled 260 pounds. Now, as you're going to find, this trip was cursed from the get-go, and it starts with our flight. And driving to the airport at 10 a.m., we discovered American Airlines was doing that bullshit where you approach your boarding time and it says 15 minutes delayed, and then 15 minutes goes by, and then it says 15 minutes again. And it keeps doing that, never letting you actually know if you're going to make your flight, just keeping you in an eternal death spiral of uncertainty and anxiety as you watch the window for your layover flight slowly evaporate into thin air. Now that's exactly what happened to us, so we had to rebook our flight. So instead of sweating at 5 p.m. when I got to Madison, Wisconsin, I had to do it right now while we waited for our next flight. And guys, let me tell you, there is nothing worse than initiating a weight cut and then getting onto a plane, looking at everybody else enjoy their cocktails mid-flight at 30,000 feet in the air, and knowing that the best I can do is chew ice chips and spit the water back into the cup. I mean, it just puts you in a state of agitation that makes everything shitty about flying that much worse. What shitty things about flying, you ask? Oh, I don't know, like being stuck on the tarmac for 40 minutes before you leave because there was an air conditioning problem they had to fix. And of course, they like to board the plane, fill it with people before they address those issues. And then after a 2.5-hour flight, there was another 40-minute holding pattern in the air above Chicago O'Hare Airport because the weather had caused the planes to back up and we had nowhere to land. So at this point, a 2.5-hour flight was a 4-hour flight, and let's just say I wasn't exactly in gamer mode. Now, we were looking forward to going to Madison because it's a cold climate and we thought it'd be cool as like a kind of pre-Christmas vacation. And boy, were we in over our heads, because when we got there, it was 11 p.m. and it was about 11 degrees outside. That's the kind of cold that makes your teeth hurt. There aren't enough layers of clothing. So I'm excited to be there in the cold, but also 11-degree weather makes it kind of difficult to sweat. Thankfully, I had my trusty $20 sauna suit, the plastics that I buy from Walmart every single time I cut weight. Throw those bad boys on, cover them with sweats, and then I'm on the treadmill for a half hour. Every time I do that, it's good for anywhere from 1.5 to 2.5 pounds, depending on how hard I push it. So I hit a round on the treadmill, a round in the sauna sleeping bag because I like to mix it up. And before I know it, I'm down to 237 with plenty of time to go. So I go to sleep, wake up the next morning 5 hours before the weigh-in time to get those last extra pounds off. And see, I'm in a peculiar situation right now because I can't just make the 231.4. I actually got to get down a bit lower because one too many times I've had my wife schlep me to the contest venue to weigh in, only to find that I was about a pound over because I whiffed the last round of sweating. And if I did that one more time, she was going to divorce me. So I have to bite the bullet and actually overcut now to make sure that I have that buffer. So I do yet another round of plastic covered cardio, get to about 235 pounds. And I say, you know what? It's time to rally. Let's get this done. So I make a bold move. I take what is probably the last shreddable sweat sticks on planet Earth because it was discontinued several years ago. And I've been holding on to this one since 2020. And I pop it open. And it's old. It's crusty. It's like when you find that old pre-workout from like 2017. It's like a different color. It's hard as a rock, but you can still chip it away with an ice pick and get some use out of it. So I squeeze it into my mouth, start chewing, and chase it with the 1.5 ounces of water that I am afforded so that I can take it. And I get right back on the wagon. I do another round in the sauna blanket and I am getting a good sweat. It's coming out. And then I'm like, let's rally. Let's get this last one out. I'm going back on the treadmill. So I take my plastics, which right now are soaking wet and covered in salt, like I just pulled them out of the Dead Sea. I throw those bad boys on, cover myself up again, and I'm on my last run. And I am oozing. I am gushing. I'm sweating like a whore in church. I felt bad for everyone around me because I was running and pulling the cuff down and water was just running out of the sleeve. So hopping on my shitty bathroom scale that's been to hell and back, I decide that the 230 pounds it reads is probably within a safe margin of error, so I can go weigh in. We take the shuttle over to the venue. There are 400 athletes that have to register, and by the time I get there, a half hour before weigh-ins, I am number 300 in line. Now Laura looks at me and she says, I hope that they don't just have 2 scales like last time. Remember 2019, all those people, they only had 2 scales, it took forever. And I said, baby, it's been 5 years. This contest has evolved so much. They have so many more classes. They've made so many logistical improvements. There's no way that they only have 2 scales for 400 athletes. And then I made a lap around and saw, 2 scales for 400 athletes. Now, as I'm waiting in line, the Shreddable is still doing its thing. My heart rate's still up from the cardio I did. And even though it's 18 degrees outside and maybe 50 degrees in the venue, I still got beads of sweat forming on my forearm. Now, the thing about forcing sweat off in that fashion, probably not good for you. You see, your body dumps water because it's a really, really efficient way to get rid of heat quickly, and you can instantaneously change your body temperature. So when you yank out a whole bunch of water, you take all the heat that water's storing, your body temp immediately plummets. The last time I used this for a cut, it was for regionals, summer, Texas, 104 degrees outside. I was shivering. I was chattering my teeth like a Weimaraner in a Sarah McLachlan commercial. So the line's moving like molasses on a winter day, and it is winter in Madison, Wisconsin. And thanks to the suspicious biohacking of Shreddable, I actually sweat through my parka. And at that point, it will be 2 hours before I get checked in. But there was a silver lining. I way overshot. I weighed in at 103 kilograms, and that means basically I can tell everybody that I'm a 220 powerlifter. But with the cold, it did get a little rough there at the end. Anybody who saw me there ready to weigh in saw that I was wrapped up and shaking like an Eskimo with the DTs. It was not a good look. So I have Laura rush me back to the hotel room, and I take a 45-minute hot shower to narrowly avoid hypothermia, and then commences the sugar and electrolyte orgy. I'm taking down juices, soda, sports drinks, plain old water, and I'm chasing it with any food labeled Entenmann's. Now, I actually love cutting because even though it's exactly as inconvenient as it sounds, there's something about the process of like draining all the water out of your body and then replenishing it and oversaturating that hits some sort of reset switch. This might be completely made up, might be bro science or placebo, but I know that all the aches and pains, the niggles, as my UK friends say, that plague you during a prep, they kind of go away. I know that every time I do this and I do it well, I end up feeling like $1,000,000. I never have cuts hurt my performance. In fact, I usually end up feeling better by contest day. And it's an added bonus that I get to partake in this completely gluttonous refeed without feeling guilty about it. In fact, it's actually essential for optimizing my performance. Now, all of this refeeding can cause a problem for a lot of people, and it's why I don't recommend it to everybody who's cutting weight, because if you're not going to do an IV or do that carefully measured out electrolyte sugar solution like so many athletes do in their colorful gallon of water, all of this eating can wreak havoc on your stomach and hit you with the case of the runs. Now, historically, I've been able to do it because I've had a cast iron system and never had that problem. Historically. I don't know if it's getting older. I don't know if it's the food allergies I've been saddled with, but for whatever reason, in this weight cut, packing my gut with 900 grams of processed carbohydrates wasn't without its consequences. It wasn't terrible, but I ended up having to do a few too many penguin marches to the bathroom that I would have liked. Now, you might think that's too much information, but hold on to it because it's relevant for later. So after weighing in Thursday morning, I would have all of Thursday night and Friday morning to spend time with my family. I was out there with my mom, with Laura, with Teddy, and we just had an absolute blast. It didn't feel like I was competing. It was low energy. I was relaxed. And that was a nice change of pace from the normal flood of nausea-inducing anxiety that I normally get before big shows where I have very high expectations of my performance. As much of a feature as that is at my biggest shows, it certainly doesn't help my performance. So we ended up going to Lucille, downtown right across from the Capitol building, a super hippie college place where normally, the prominently displayed tampons in the men's room might sour me a little bit. They had actually won me over with the overly extravagant Christmas display that filled my heart with warmth. It led me to put a Santa hat on and say, ho, 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 tampons for everyone. And I got really excited over the cocktail list, which was Christmas themed, and it had so many dozens of different drinks, each one carefully made, each one fantastic. My favorite, the Yippee-Ki-Yay motherfucker, which was basically like a Mai Tai in a Santa-shaped mug with little umbrellas. It was delicious. It made me happy. It made me forget about this shitty prep. And the thing is, I'm a simple man, regardless of politics. Just give me some flavored rum and a Die Hard reference, and we can be friends. Now, going into Friday, everybody would be in different time slots. Before, they would have everybody run through event 1 and then everybody run through event 2, which meant you were there for a full day to do 2 events, and that kind of sucked. It really took any possibility of enjoying your vacation out of the equation. So now my entire time slot for those 2 events was from 5 to 6:30, nice, tight, compact. I was about it. So while the pro was that you could actually do things and enjoy your time without being stuck at the expo for 8 hours, the con was that my normal 24-hour refeed was now a 36-hour refeed. And that resulted in an acute overdose of sugar, sodium, and fluids. The pizza, the processed foods, the Christmas alcohols, all fused in my stomach into something that functions exactly like the clear fluid that they make you drink before surgery. Yes, this is foreshadowing. Event number 1 is the log press. They had a 330 or a 300. Heavier weight wins, obviously, so it's up to you to rack up points any which way you can. And any other year, this would have been an easy top 3 or 4, but I had a torn labrum and it made anything over an RPE4 feel like my shoulder was going to roll out of the socket. It made reaching out to grab things an impossibility, and I couldn't get anywhere near contest weight in training. So my plan was to ignore the 330 and just see what points I could rack up with the 300, and I thought there was actually a chance I might zero what is usually one of my best events. So I get there, I slather my shoulder in Voltaren. I'm going full bore on the painkillers, the anti-inflammatories. I bought BioFreeze in the cream version so I could get extra layers of application. And when that's all done, I start doing the universal cure for anything that's wrong with your shoulder, and that is light banded face pulls. And wouldn't you know it, all of that mixing with the taper that actually allowed me to recover, mixing with the contest adrenaline, had my shoulder feeling pretty good. A little bit too good. In warm-ups, I hit a stupidly easy 320 and thought, you know what? That answers that question. I gotta go for the 330. So they line us up. I'm one of the first people up, and I go and stand at the line, and I'm staring down my judge, which is strongman legend Ode Haugen. Now, this was kind of cool because I know Ode. I trained at his gym a few times. I've been to his contests. I've talked to him in person. And as I'm lining up, staring down that log, I hear him say out to me something to the effect of, "Come on, Alex, let's see it." Now, those are the moments in strongman that you dream about, where you get to a point where not only are you interacting with all the people that you look up to, but they know you by name and they're actually cheering you down. This was gonna be my moment to shine. Until it wasn't. I bombed the fucking log. I zeroed out completely. I initially overconfidently sauntered over to the 330, hit a very easy clean, and then proceeded to have no earthly idea of where the fuck I was in time and space. I fell straight backwards multiple times, and trying to recover the log gave my head a case of the numb and tinglies. And I'd spent a little too much time thinking about Nathan Goltry's bad go at the log lift world championships. That was in the back of my head, and I thought, you know what, not today, Satan. I'm gonna set this down, swallow my pride, and go back to my initial plan and just clock some reps on the 300. But of course, at this point, I'm in pure unadulterated panic mode, and I'm just flapping around with the log like a greased up goose, and the result was a goose egg. Now, going into the log, the previous groups were warning everybody else that, hey, by the time you finish with the log, you got like no time to get into the yoke because they're going quick, so you better sprint down, get your runs in, or you're going to be going into the car walk completely cold. So having just bombed out, having still all of the other 105s to go, I thought I was going to make good time, went down, immediately started warming up, started to have a good run with the yoke. I did a short run with 800 that felt better than anything in training, and I thought, you know what? I might actually get a little bit of redemption on this one. Now, this is where the story gets fun, kids. I set up under the car yoke. It's my time to go. I'm waiting for the whistle. I get all the tension taken out, take a big breath, and even though I bobble a little bit, I pick it up and start trucking, and mentally, I'm telling everybody to eat my dust. And just as I let that little bit of hubris get the better of me, my AC joint pops. This little spot right here, right where the collarbone meets the scapula, there's a little bit of cartilage in there. And if you put a little bit too much pressure, like in a really close grip on a squat or a 900-pound yoke walk, it can pop. And even though it's not a devastating injury, it hurts like shit, takes forever to heal, makes it really impossible to hold things or press things in the short term. I'd done it about 8 years ago, wasn't fun. So I think to myself, I'm in the middle of this yoke run. My right shoulder is now useless, but what am I, new? I don't need my arms to support a 900-pound yoke. I can just like hold it on my back. Well, it turns out trying to do a heavy yoke walk without the use of your arms to build tension is a great way to make it about 10 times harder. So my upper back proceeds to slump over like a sad flower in a Tim Burton film. And because everybody set the car pick lower to accommodate for the tilting of the wheels, I had to do a very low pick on not one, but multiple picks as I proceeded to drop, take a breath, repick, hoping to just finish the damn thing as my motivation and my soul slowly left my body. So here we are bombing the second event in a row. My patellar tendons are hanging on by a thread. My bad shoulder is now my useless shoulder, and the implement is rolling down my spine, crushing me like a tube of toothpaste. And what happens when you take a rolling pin to a tube of toothpaste? Well, kids, this is where that foreshadowing comes in. You see, by my fourth pick or so, I had resigned myself to stop trying to get some type of integrity and just let the implement do what it was going to do to my spine. It was just going to have its way with me. I could still stand up, and I just had to commit to taking one step in front of the other. Well, just as the pressure in my face reached a crescendo and burst a blood vessel in my eye, an equal and opposite reaction happened on the other end, and a Coca-Cola and Mentos level event took place directly into my barbell apparel pants. Now, I'm somewhat of an optimist at heart, and I thought to myself, you never know. I could be lucky. It could just be blood. But I wasn't so lucky, and as I finished the event, I clamored to get out of the car as fast as possible and away from that thing because there were 19 fucking cameras and commentary from legends in the sport all pointed at me broadcasting to a large number of people. So in the event that I actually left a trail of shit across the contest floor, I didn't want to be anywhere near that thing. As an aside to all of the women that will do like a Conan's wheel wearing booty shorts and piss in a circle continuously as they finish the event and then take that footage and pin it on their Instagram as a sign of pride, I'm going to speak on behalf of everyone and say that my response to such an event is a little more appropriate. Now, as I leave the car, I get swarmed by a sea of spotters going up to reset the implement for the next group, which included a very large Evan Singleton walking up to give me the obligatory, "Good job," the fist bump that says, "We all know that was a shitty performance, but I'm acknowledging that you put some effort into it." Now, as I reach out to fist bump him back, I am hit with the realization that the aroma has dispersed and everybody in the vicinity had just walked in to a wall of contest-induced diarrhea. There is no doubt in my mind that everybody in that vicinity was hit with the realization that somebody did indeed shit their pants. Now, those of you that have watched this channel might have seen me make a couple of jokes at Evan Singleton's expense. He has a very over-the-top stage persona. It's low-hanging fruit. I've made 2 or 3 jokes over the years. Now, I don't know if karma is real, but talking shit about somebody only to have them take the high road by coming up and telling you good job after you shit the bed and literally shit your pants feels a lot like karma to me. So, lesson learned, loud and clear. I'd like to give an apology to Evan Singleton, both for the public ribbing, but for also what he had to walk into. That was my bad. Now, my hard lesson in humility wasn't over, not by a long shot. I still had to dispose of the evidence of my shame. So I geisha walked to the nearest restroom, which tends to be rather busy at these events, and wedged myself into a tiny middle stall, and I was immediately faced with a problem. See, I'm still breathing hard from my death march with too much goddamn weight on my back. I'm sweating, I'm tired, I'm not flexible normally, and in this little stall, I have a problem. I have to get to my soiled underwear, which is carefully wrapped under my barbell apparel tight stretchy pants, which are secured by my 2 tight knee sleeves that usually require another person to help me get them off, on top of my New Balances. So in this state, I have to completely undress myself without spreading the contamination zone. The whole contortionist act I was trying to do, I felt like I signed up for some kind of fucked up magic trick. And I distinctly remember thinking in the middle of this, I'm absolutely not making a video about this. But I did it. I redressed myself, I neatly folded up the evidence, and I was ready to go out and sneakily discard it into the bathroom waste bin. But there was a problem. There was no bathroom waste bin because this was a very forward-thinking city, and you don't need a waste bin if there's no paper towels because everybody here cleans their hands with state-of-the-art air-dry blowers. Why would you need a trash can in a bathroom? My only way out was to take it and tuck it between my knee sleeves like an assassin trying to smuggle a gun inside of a newspaper. I had to casually carry my shitty underwear out into the open in the athletes area so that I could sneakily back toss it behind me into the first available trash can like I was an extra in Homeland. And the odds of me missing and having it go over the floor, exposing to everybody what had just happened, it wasn't zero. That was present in my mind that this could actually go so much worse. I should actually just tuck it back in my pants and just ride it out for the rest of the day. But thankfully that didn't happen. I actually got it in the waste bin, and at this time I'm not a grown man with a successful business who's hanging out amongst his peers in a field that he spent 20 years trying to get really good at. No, I am teleported back into 4th grade summer camp, and I'm just the fat lonely kid trying to hide the evidence of his wet sheets. Now the funny thing is, this didn't ruin my trip. My mood tends to follow kind of a U-shaped curve, and it's pretty sharp. Very small things will set me off and ruin my trip, and thus everybody else's trip who's along with me. You can ask my wife about the petty shit that I lose my mind over. I mean, I was ready to burn everything down because I was sitting in front of some guy who wouldn't shut the fuck up about his World of Warcraft campaigns during our 4-hour flight on the way out there. However, if the engine had caught fire and the plane was actually going down, I'd be there laughing, trying to grab the last single serving bottle of vodka. I'd be making jokes about the absurdness of it all. I would be there acknowledging the chaos as a necessary component of fully experiencing life. So that's what I decided to do here, and when my mom and stepdad walked up at the hotel lobby and said, "What the hell took so long?" Without skipping a beat, I said, "Sorry, I shit my pants, I had to deal with it." And that immediately led into a loud public roundtable discussion between the 4 of us over the times where we as adults had shit ourselves. It was very cathartic, kind of a sweet moment if I'm being honest. And that, kids, is a lesson in vulnerability. Now that night, my mom watched Teddy so Laura and I could go out and paint the town red. It's been months since we've had a date night by ourselves, and we were looking to enjoy Madison. We're treating this as a vacation more so than a contest experience. So we ended up back at Lucille with the ornate Christmas lights and the strings of mistletoe contrasting against the BLM and LGBT flags. And I sipped on the best gingerbread old fashioned that I have ever had in my fucking life. And me and Laura talked about everything. We talked about the contest as we generally do, but we talked about our life, what we were grateful for, the fact that we didn't deserve all that we had. We talked about how much fun we had together, even when the world was burning, especially when the world was burning. And it's those moments that put things in perspective. It's why I don't get bent out of shape over contests anymore. It's why the anxiety lessens. In the face of everything that I feel like I have to do, this is all stuff I get to do. Whether it goes right, whether it goes wrong, it can't sour the moment because there is just too much good shit going on. And that gave me some motivation. I wanted to jump back into day 2 and have fun with it. Not because I had to, but because I wanted to. I wasn't out. I was just getting started. And then I woke up the next morning. I tried to stand up and almost collapsed because the tendons in my knee were raw. It felt like I had skinned the inside of my knee from all of those numerous sloppy yoke picks I had to do. And the incident in my shoulder made turning my head and reaching back to wipe my ass an impossibility. Sorry for everything in this video being so ass-centric, but you knew what this was. So then I realized there just wasn't a good move. I had to call it. Now, real quick, I have to address the people who are going to criticize me for backing out of a contest. "You always stay in gamer mode, brother. You give it all at all costs, no matter if you're ahead or behind." This completionist perspective is very appropriate in some situations, like when you make your 10-year-old stay in a race where he's dead last and he has a blister because we finish what we start in this family, son. It's a lot different though when you're like a seasoned athlete. If you're like a veteran NASCAR driver and you throw a rod on the first lap, you don't stay in just so you can say, "Hey, at least I finished it." In complete honesty, I absolutely could have sucked it up and finished the event. I could have given myself the 80s powerlifter treatment. I could have done some K-tape nonsense on my shoulder with duct tape. I could have taken cocaine and mixed it with an industrial grade solvent like DMSO to shuttle it to my cells quicker. And I could have taken all of that and wrapped it under a tight layer of elastic fabric just to get myself to Frankenstein walk through one more event. But I made a conscious decision that in my late 30s and with my share of injuries, taking that risk to fight for 35th place instead of 40th didn't really make a whole lot of sense. And if I was to weigh out what was necessary, what was fun, I would say that spending time with my family was easily a much better choice than scraping my way through the last leg of a contest that I had disqualified myself from finishing anyways. So strategy is a thing, and that was my strategy. And it was really easy to do that too, because my wife initially didn't even want me to do the show. Her initial wisdom was, why don't you just stay out of this because you're not ready for it, which I took huge exception to, even though I absolutely wasn't ready for it. She said, why don't you instead just take this energy and prep for the Arnold? Have a really good long prep, come in prepared, and you can get vengeance. The Arnold has a pro card on the line. I stand a better chance of winning it, and I have a vendetta from when I shit the bed back in 2020. I got a lot of vendettas in Strongman, actually. So the Arnold is still on the table. We're still going to start that prep, but this fuckery actually took a big chunk out of that prep already. So going to my wife and saying, baby, I don't think I should finish the show, she had the opportunity to look at me in the eye, say, I think that's the right move, honey. I told you so. So a few parting thoughts about this show. John Hack surprised me. I think he surprised a lot of people, not just because he dominated the deadlift with his 700 for 9 reps on an axle, which I think a lot of people expected him to do, but he actually won the sandbag medley. The strongmaniest of strongman events, one of the ones that favors athletes over static people, he just burned through. That was hugely impressive to me, and it shows that if he wanted to, he could be one of the heavier hitters here. Now, I don't know that he will, because being the best 90 kilogram strongman in the world doesn't have the same level of clout as being literally the best powerlifter to have ever lived. And it takes a shit ton more work, at least relative to where he is right now. So we'll see if he sticks with it. It would be cool to see him stick with it. And if he actually fixes a couple of things, he might even be able to go into some bigger classes. It was also cool to see Nick Guardione win the Opens. I met him along with Austin Andrade when I trained at Heavy Metal Fitness. That's owned by Tim and Michelle, who are two of like the coolest, nicest, warmest people in the world. Tim came up to me, went out of his way to say hi to me when he was there, congratulated me on having a kid. Just real cool people. And it was great to see Austin and Nick over the last couple of years just turn into monsters. Nick is going to run shit in a couple of years. He's tall, he's built for it, and he's on this monster warpath. So I'm really excited to see what he does in the next couple of years. I also have to comment on the 105s. I don't know what the fuck is going on with the 105s. I don't know where these people came from. The static strength just leveled up to this kind of ridiculous notch where the number of people that are repping 750 deadlifts and 330 logs is pretty insane, and they're well-rounded and everything else. So seeing Alex Sukup and Nick Hine go 1 and 2, I mean, both of them got 5 reps on a 330 log, clean each rep. That's insane. Alec Viper pressed all of them, which is even more insane, and they were both repping 750 like it was their job on the deadlift. And shout out to Chris Otero, who pulled 7 reps on a 750 deadlift. It doesn't even make sense. Now, I also got to give it up to just everybody who came up and said hi. That was one of the coolest things of the event. I'm actually kind of introverted by nature. I don't like initiating conversation. I'm the guy that gets awkward and avoids people in the grocery store. I know, not because I don't want to talk to them, but because I'm just super awkward in those types of interactions. And for that reason, you'll probably see me at these things walking around, looking kind of lost and alone. But every time somebody went out of their way to walk up to me, to say hi, to say something about the channel, it absolutely made my day. I love talking about lifting, and that was one of the coolest things. I got to talk to a dozen different people about their event, what they had done that day. And it reminds me of the social aspect of strongman, which is something I've been away from for a while. So if you do ever see me out at an expo or at a contest, please come up and say hi. It doesn't even have to be nice. You can walk up and say, hey, I think your last take on pull-ups was fucking stupid. I'm a social weirdo, but yes, I do enjoy talking to people. So now I lick my wounds and we prep for the Arnold, which has some good events for me. So I'm excited for that in March. So if you want a front row seat onto how that train wreck is going to evolve, hit subscribe, stay tuned. I'm going to be uploading some training videos, doing a more thorough deep dive into programming and into my training than I had done recently. Stick around because I'm going to broadcast this shit show in its entirety. Thanks so much for watching, guys. This was really just cathartic for me. Maybe you got something out of it, but let me know in the comments. Do you relate to anything? What's your worst contest performance that you had, or the most embarrassing time that you've had in the gym? Leave that below. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Till next time, this is Bromley. I'll see you.